voice cloning is here. Yesterday, I actually talked to someone who, for the first time, was directly impacted by a voice cloning scam. One of her grandfather actually reported that her brother had called him and needed some money, and it turned out it was a scammer that was using voice cloning to try to convince him that it was actually his grandson. So, and one of the reasons this worked is because her brother was a public figure and has a lot of voice and video out there. Now, you don't need much. It only takes about a minute of audio. So on the screen here, we see one example from last month of voice cloning used in an actual scam. So in this case, the scammers called an 82-year-old man, and they said that they were the police and that Michael was in trouble. And then they put Michael's actual voice, a cloned version of his voice, on the phone briefly and said, you know, I need help or something along those lines. And so the 82-year-old man said, you have the quote on the screen here, I heard Michael's voice. I thought I was talking to Michael. So that's just one example. We are in the early days of these scams, but they are already starting to clone voices. So let's see how we do it. As we talked about back in October, voice cloning is fast and free. And today we're going to take it to the next level and actually show you an example of how it works. So we ended up using a tool called 11 Labs. 11 Labs is great. You can clone audio on the fly. All you need is about a minute and a half of somebody's audio. So in this case, I actually went with a video of someone who I work with quite a bit. Haha, Matt. We decided to clone your voice. Pretty soon you won't even need to be here at all. So we got about a minute sample of Matt's audio, which is easy to do because he chitter chatters a lot. And then we uploaded it to the system. And when I say we, I mean that also means our new intern, Lauren. So I want to say a big thank you to Lauren, who really dug into the voice cloning demonstrations and helped us understand how the system worked and get some good voice clones. So also I want to mention that scammers often target new employees like Lauren. And so our scammer is going to call Lauren in this case and try to get Lauren to do something. So let's see how that works. All right, so here's a system where we've already trained it. We've uploaded about a minute and a half of audio from Matt. And then we can type in any arbitrary message that we want Matt to say.
This is Matt. Can you do me a favor? I need you to run out really fast and get $1,000 worth of Apple gift cards. Just text me the card number so I can send them to our remote team as a bonus. Thanks. I appreciate you.
Aw, that's so nice, Matt. So imagine
did you give me the gift cards or what?
Right, come on. Sorry, she didn't listen. So imagine a new employee getting not just a text message, but a call from your CEO or a call from their boss. Your intern gets a call from the boss saying, hey, I need you to go out and do this. It's really effective. It's really frightening, and it is going to change the way we work. If you have even a minute or a minute and a half of audio anywhere out there on the internet or on social media, assume that your voice can be cloned and protect against it. So let's talk about some of the potential threats to businesses. Right now, this is being used by scammers. They find a public figure, they figure out who their grandparents are. This has happened multiple times now. They'll call that person and try to scam them out of money. So this is really targeting individuals. We will undoubtedly see this rolled out towards businesses soon as well. So imagine, here's a few examples. Someone could pretend to be the CEO or pretend to be the CFO and direct your staff to do something or put out something embarrassing. These scammers could call and pretend to be customers. Hey, I need you to move money, or I want to get my account information. And sometimes your team has a very close relationship with customers they've been working with 10, 15, 20 years. And so they're using, even though maybe there's supposed to be other methods, they're really just using voice recognition, especially if it's coming from a number they recognize. And I want to flip ahead for a second because it is very easy to spoof caller ID. At LMG, we do social engineering testing all the time. So we call people within your business and test to see if they will give sensitive information out over the phone or if they'll take actions based on what we're telling them to do. And I can tell you that it's easy for us to do caller ID spoofing, and when that number is recognizable, people are much more likely to trust the person calling. According to the FBI, there's an increasingly prevalent tactic by bad actors of spoofing legitimate business phone numbers to confirm fraudulent banking details, blah, blah, blah. So they are using these very common tools. You might also have scammers trying to contact your bank and pose as a member of your team, again, using caller ID or voice recognition. So think about that relationship you have with vendors, with bankers, with your customers. And if someone takes that next step to authenticate you in a different way, embrace that, because this is really happening and all of us are going to be targets. How can we protect ourselves? Number one, we need to be conducting cybersecurity training and awareness. So some critical topics that we need to think about today are voice cloning, phone-based social engineering. So as you are going through and reviewing your monthly training, for those of you that are doing on-demand training, make sure you're including the latest threats. And phone-based social engineering is one of the latest threats. At LMG, we do managed on-demand training with KnowBe4, and I can guarantee you that phone-based scams are going to be highlighted in the next quarter. So make sure that you are including that. And then set up a process where you're carefully verifying callers all throughout the organization. There's places where we don't really authenticate callers because we've never needed to before. Hey, my coworker just called me. My boss just called me. You need to set up the scenarios which should trigger extra authentication. Scenarios like, oh, you want me to move money? You want me to disclose information about invoices or whatever. So think about what are those scenarios that should trigger an alarm bell. And then how are you going to have them authenticate? So a really low-tech way to do that is just call the person back at a number that you know is legitimate. So that callback technique is actually very effective, very low-tech. Just don't call a number on an email or something that the scammer could have given you. Call a number from your directory or something that you know is legitimate. Right now, you could also consider video verification for those of you that use Teams or Zoom. The scammers will sooner or later get good at faking video, but we're not quite there yet the way we are with audio. So for now, video is still a decent method to authenticate people. Be cautious anytime you're using knowledge-based authentication, whether it's a secret code or anything else that, or trivia questions about people like what's your favorite color, what's your mother's maiden name. Those are things that could be stolen or guessed or phished. So just be very cautious. Knowledge-based authentication is better than nothing, but definitely a risky method to verify someone's identity. And the big one that I want to talk about is using an MFA app. Actually using an MFA app to verify callers. So I'd be curious to know how many of you are doing this. Right now, we see this a lot in call centers, for example, in the financial sector. So a bank's call centers or some other larger organizations' call centers might verify callers using an actual multi-factor authentication app. So Matt, do you want to talk through how Caller Verify works? This is just one example. There are other tools, but Caller Verify is very popular and it can integrate with both Okta or Duo.
Yeah, Caller Verify is actually a really handy tool if you are operating a large-scale call center, and they're one of the more popular variations of this kind of security verification system out there. Realistically, how it works is pretty basic. I mean, the calls are going to start off roughly the same. They're going to go through, the caller's going to contact you. They're going to go through some of those initial questions just to essentially verify that it is a legitimate phone call at the very least. And then there is a second factor prompt that will be sent out to an authenticator application on that user's cell phone. So something like Duo or Okta are very, very popular additions with Caller Verify or Phonebook, one of the other applications we see out there very frequently. But it allows for a very secure second factor. One, it's going to go to that user's individual cell phone, and two, most of those authentication apps also rely on biometric authentication on the phone to actually approve a request. So once we hit that second factor and we have approved it on the line, then we can either verify and the agent can proceed with the call as they see fit, or we're not verified and we know that we've got a problem here. We can relate this out to a fraud team, or we can flag an account for follow-up if we need to. Either way, it's a great move forward that doesn't rely on something that's easily phishable or researchable like knowledge-based authentication, which, while okay, is not the best way of actually verifying someone.
Yeah, so if you get a lot of inbound calls from customers, for example, or other outside parties, using an app like this may be an effective solution for you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Again, this is Sherry Davidoff, CEO of LMG Security.
And I'm Matt Duran, Director of Training and Research for LMG Security. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at any time. We would love to hear from you. You can reach us at info@lmgsecurity.com, find us on LinkedIn, or follow us on Twitter. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next time.